Episode 101, The Resurrected Gods Before Christ. Osiris. Britannica.com states, Osiris, one of the most important gods of ancient Egypt. Origin of Osiris is obscure. He was a local god of Osiris in Lower Egypt, may have been a personification of chthonic underworld fertility. By about 2400 BC, Osiris clearly played a double role. He was both a god of fertility and the embodiment of the dead and resurrected king. Here is Osiris and the four sons of Horus. Osiris, the lord of the dead and rebirth. Green skin symbolizes rebirth, resurrection, renewal. EgyptianWisdomCenter.org states, Tet pillar represents lopped trunk of the cedar tree, symbolizing the possibility of renewed life. It is depicted here as Osiris being surrounded, or his body being surrounded by a cedar tree. Briseis Digital Library of Tufts University is a world-class private research university in Greater Boston. They have compiled all the Greek writings of historians from thousands of years to present day. We will reference their historical documents throughout this podcast. Plutarch 52 states, in the sacred hymns of Osiris, they call him up who lies hidden in the arms of the sun, S-U-N. Osiris is the sun, S-U-N. They also declare Isis to be no other than the moon. World History Encyclopedia states, Osiris, Lord and Judge of the dead, one of the 5 first gods born of Nut at the dawn of creation, and one of the most popular and enduring gods of Egypt. His name means powerful or mighty. Osiris was originally a fertility god who grew in popularity and influence through the Osiris myth, in which he was killed by his brother Set, brought back to life by his wife Isis. He fathers sky god Horus and descends to the underworld as judge of the dead. In the Egyptian Book of the Dead, he is mentioned frequently as the just judge in the Hall of Truth, who weighs the hearts of the souls of the dead against the white feather of Maat. Osiris is an early example of the dying and reviving god figure in mythology who lent himself to the latter version of this figure, Jesus Christ. Egyptian kings identified themselves with Osiris in death, and he is usually depicted as a mummy, symbolizing death, and with green or black skin, symbolizing the fertility of the Nile region and life. He was so popular that people in ancient Egypt paid to have their bodies buried at Abydos near his cult center, and those who could not afford that would pay for memorials to be erected to them or their loved ones at Abydos, believing that proximity to Osiris on earth guaranteed easier access to paradise after death. Okay. His cult naturally merged with that of his wife and the cult of Isis, with its symbolism of salvation, eternal life, the dying and reviving God, and the divine son born of a virgin mother, would later influence the development of early Christianity. What? Osiris timeline per World History Encyclopedia begins in 6000 BC throughout 1800 BC. But Osiris lasted way after the 1800s. Pausanias 10.32 states, per the Briseis, I've heard a similar story from a man of Phoenicia that the Egyptians hold the feast for Isis at a time when they say she is mourning for Osiris. At this time, the Nile begins to rise, and it is a saying among many of the natives that what makes the river rise and water their fields is the tears of Isis. Wow. At that time then, so said my Phoenician, the Roman governor of Egypt, bribed a man to go down into the shrine of Isis in Coptus. The man dispatched into the shrine returned indeed out of it. But after relating what he had seen, he too, so I was told, died immediately. So it appears that Homer's verse speaks the truth when it says it bodies no good to man to see Godhead face to face. What? The Phoenicians came on the scene in around the 1500 BCs. Listen to the words used and how these words are very similar to what's in the Bible given to us and our ancestors of the Atlantic slave trade. Key points about Osiris. His followers stated and believed that Osiris was the sun, S-U-N. Osiris is known as the sun, S-U-N. His wife, who is also his sister, Isis, is known as the moon. Osiris is the creator of society, responsible for love, farming, religion, and education to people. He promised a renewed life in paradise. Osiris was surrounded by cedar, meaning renewed life. Cedar in the Bible is described as royalty, protection, and strength. Osiris is also known as the dead and resurrected king. The similarities to Osiris and Jesus being the S-O-N is startling. Osiris was a god way before Jesus Christ. Horus. Britannica.com states, Horus, in ancient Egyptian religion, a god in the form of a falcon whose right eye was the sun, S-U-N, or morning star, representing power and quintessence, and whose left eye was the moon or evening star, representing healing. Falcon cults, which were in evidence from late pre-dynastic times, were widespread in Egypt. Horus' dad was Osiris. Horus's mother is Isis. Here is Isis holding her son, Horus. Per thecollector.com, the Egyptian goddess Isis was a virgin deity, but she was able to magically conceive a son named Horus, making her a mother goddess. Their closeness evolved into the ideal mother-son relationship as Isis went to the extreme lengths to ensure the safety of her son when he was an infant. She continued to support her son in securing the throne of ancient Egypt, and as such, she became the symbol of maternal sacrifice and devotion. Apollodorus 2.1 per Perseus. Isis, whom the ancients sometimes identified with Io, is said to have nursed the infant son of the king of Byblos, or Bible. So now we have Isis in Byblos. In fact, there are stories where Isis had to retrieve her brother, also known as her husband Osiris, from Byblos, or Bible, to bring him back to life. Osiris and Isis were the gods worshipped and revered in Byblos, or Bible. Britannica.com. Isis, one of the most important goddesses of ancient Egypt. Her name is the Greek form of an ancient Egyptian word for throne. Isis was initially an obscure goddess who lacked her own dedicated temples, but she grew in importance as the dynastic age progressed until she became one of the most important deities of ancient Egypt. Her cult subsequently spread throughout the Roman Empire, and Isis was worshipped from England to Afghanistan. She is still revered by pagans today. Remember, Israel received their doctrine from Egypt. As mourner, she was a principal deity in rites connected with the dead. As magical healer, She cured the sick and brought the deceased to life. As a mother, she was a role model for all women. From Alexandria, her cult spread to Greece and Rome. Images of Isis nursing the baby Horus may have influenced the early Christian artists who depicted the Virgin Mary with the baby Jesus. Isis' son Horus was the god of healing, protection, sun, and sky. Horus's timeline is from 3150 BC through 2890 BC per the World History Encyclopedia. Key points of Horus. He was the god of healing, born of a virgin Isis, who she was a healer and could raise the dead. Horus was born on December the 25th and was born shortly after creation. There are claims he was also resurrected from the dead. He was a part of the triad worship of Osiris, Isis, and Horus, the divinity. Horus was a god before Jesus Christ. The religion of Egypt involved the worship of Osiris, Isis, and Horus. Egyptus per Harper's Dictionary in the Perseus says, the religion of the ancient Egyptians was a pantheistic system, each god, as with the Romans, standing for some special attribute. Each principal divinity is accompanied by a put or retinue of associated gods. As with the Assyrians, the pantheon is grouped in triads or family groups, each consisting of the parent deity, his wife and sister, and a son. Thus, the god Ptah forms a triad with Sekhet or Bast and Imhotep. These triads are often associated with inferior deities to complete the put. The worship of many triads was restricted to particular localities, but other triads, such as those of Osiris, Isis, and Horus, all which see, were adored all over Egypt. The dual conception that embodies the antagonism of good and evil is seen in the opposition of the sun gods to the great serpent, Apap, the type of darkness, while Osiris is pitted against Seth. On the monuments, the gods are generally represented with human bodies, but the heads of animals being their living emblems. At the close of the 18th dynasty, some foreign deities were admitted into the religious system of Egypt. Among those were Baal, Ashtaroth, Kun, and Reset. As with the Greeks and Romans, so with the Egyptians. The gods were conceived as processed of all the human passions and emotions. Another point of the Egyptian religion was a belief in the transmigration of souls. All who were too impure to be admitted to the courts of the sun, sun, or whose bodies were embalmed, perished before the end of 3,000 years, passed from body to body, having first descended to the lower world. The sacred bark in which the mummy was carried over the Nile to its tomb was a type of sunboat, which would be at last bear the purified spirit to paradise. What? The chief remains of Egyptian architecture are religious tombs, temples, and pyramids, the last name being royal tombs reared to mark the burial places of the kings. They are the most ancient of the Egyptian monuments. The text in point of antiquity being the rock tombs of the 11th and 12th dynasties, with their mummy pits. Later still come the hill tombs with a temple before them. The succeeding kings carried the arms of Egypt far into Ethiopia, Nubia, and Asia, subduing the whole of Syria and part of Mesopotamia. This pagan worship had spread everywhere way before Jesus Christ was born. The key points of the Egyptians' religion: they worshiped the three godhead, Osiris, Isis, and Horus, the divinity. They believed in transmigration, which is a soul can pass out of one body to the next human, animal, or object. The sacred bark, or the Ark of the Covenant, would carry their dead body or spirit to paradise. And we talked about the Ark of the Covenant in our prior podcast very extensively. The Egyptian kings influenced and took over the areas of Ethiopia where they claimed to have the first Bible, Nubia, Asia, Syria, and Mesopotamia. The next god, Dionysus. Dionysus is Greco-Roman religion, a nature god of fruitfulness and vegetation, especially known as a god of wine and ecstasy. The occurrence of his name on a linear B tablet in the 13th century BC shows that he was already worshipped in the Mycenaean period, although it is not known where his cult originated. In all the legends of his cult, he is depicted as having foreign origins. Dionysus was the son of Zeus and Semele, a daughter of Cadmus, king of Thebes. Here is a statue of Hermes, butt naked, holding baby Dionysus. Truth Wars had to redact this picture. Hermes is an Olympian Greek god. There are the Hermes designer bags of the stars, which are worth thousands of dollars. This bag here is worth over $60,000 for a bag. This is the history. WorldHistoryEncyclopedia.com states Dionysus was also known as Bacchus to both the Greeks and the Romans. He was the ancient Greek god of wine, theater, madness, and wild frenzy, merriment, and vegetation. Apollodorus 3.5 says Dionysus is said to have gone down to hell to fetch up his mother Semele at Lerna, where he plunged into the Alcyonian lake, a pool which was supposed to be bottomless and therefore to afford an easy access to the netherworld. There's so many similarities in their writings to what's in the Bible. However, Hyginus gives Hippolypus as the name of the guide to hell. Every year, the descent of the god through the deep water was celebrated with nocturnal rites on the reedy margin of the pool. The pious Pausanias shrank from divulging the nature of the rites, but from Plutarch we learn that a lamb was thrown into the lake as an offering to water of hell, while on trumpets hidden in the god's leafy emblems, the buglers blew blasts which, startling the stillness and darkness of night, were believed to have summoned up the lost Dionysus from the watery depths. He was resurrected. Perhaps in answer to the bugle call, an actor dressed in the vine god's garb may have emerged dripping from the pool to receive the congratulations of the worshippers of his rising from the dead. What? However, according to others, the resurrection of Dionysus and his mother took place not in the gloomy swamp at Lerna, but on the beautiful, almost landlocked bay of Troezen. Okay. Apollodorus 1.3. The mysteries of Dionysus, which Orpheus instituted in Greece, were copied by him from the Egyptian mysteries of Osiris. The view that the mysteries of Dionysus were based on those of Osiris has been maintained in recent years by the very able and learned French scholar Monsieur Foucault. The earliest evidence of Dionysus' cult is in 1350 BC. Key points about Dionysus. He was the god of wine, ecstasy, and theater. He is responsible for Western theater. They threw a lamb in the lake as an offering to the water or the guard of hell. They blew trumpets to awaken the dead. There are several stories of the god Dionysus' resurrection, and this all happened before Jesus Christ. Salmoxis or Salmoxis. Herodotus 4.94 and 95 wrote about Salmoxis in his history books written before 425 BC. He states, their belief in their immortality is as follows. They believe that they do not die, but that one who perishes goes to the deity of Salmoxis or Gebelesis, as some of them call him. While he was doing, as I have said, and teaching this doctrine, he was meanwhile making an underground chamber. When this was finished, he vanished from the sight of the Thracians and went down into the underground chamber where he lived for 3 years, while the Thracians wished him back and mourned him for dead. Then in the 4th year, he appeared to the Thracians. And thus they came to believe that Salmoxis had told them. Such is the Greek story about him, encyclopedia.com. In his homeland, Salmoxis had an Aegeron built, a room for the exclusive use of men, where he received the chiefs of the Getae and taught them that neither they nor their posterity would die. This concept of immortality refers in all probability to a paradise where warriors would enjoy eternal life and everlasting pleasures after death. While he imparted the teachings of the afterlife, Salmoxis had an underground chamber constructed. When it was finished, he retired in it for 3 years, during which the Thracians mourned his death. But in the 4th year, he reappeared, showing that death is not irreversible or death is not permanent. The key point of Salmoxis, they preached immortality and eternal life. He was resurrected from the dead. He was before Jesus Christ. Adonis in Greek mythology, a youth of remarkable beauty, the favorite of the goddess Aphrodite, identified with Venus by the Romans. The central idea of the myth is that of the death and resurrection of Adonis, which represent the decay of nature every winter and its revival in the spring. World History Encyclopedia states, the myth of Adonis is a legendary love story that combines tragedy and death on the one hand and the joy of coming back to life on the other. The story of the impossibly handsome Adonis and his lover, the goddess Aphrodite, originally dates back to the ancient civilizations of the Near East. It was popular among the Canaanites and very well known to the people of Mesopotamia and Egypt as well, though referred to by different names in each civilization. It is the legend of the god of beauty who faced death when he was young but came back to life for the sake of his beloved Aphrodite. The myth has been a source of great inspiration for many poets, artists, and historians alike, leading to its widespread use as a major theme in literary and intellectual productions. From the Canaanite Adon to the Greek Adonis, the god Adon was considered one of the most important Canaanite gods. He was the god of beauty, fertility, and permanent renewal. The name itself, Adon, means the Lord in Canaanite. In Greek mythology and the Hellenic world generally, he was called Adonis and became known by that name among those nations. Other adaptations of Adon in various civilizations include the Canaanite god Baal, who was worshipped in Ugarit, and Tammuz, or Dumuzi, as he was known to the Babylonians. In Egypt, he was Osiris, the god of resurrection. Key points of Adonis. He's formerly the Canaanite god named Adon, known as the Lord. He was resurrected. He came before Jesus Christ. There were so many gods that were resurrected that it's too many to count. Hercules of 600 BC ascended to heaven in a cloud after his death. Asclepius of 700 BC was raised from the dead to the angels in a column of fire. Hercules, the god of strength and endurance, he killed snakes as an infant. He was immortal. Asclepius is the god of medicine, had powers of prophecy, known to raise people from the dead. Asclepius' healing powers were so formidable that he could even raise the dead, for which, in another medical association with snakes, he used the blood of Medusa, given to him by Athena. And we know the doctor symbol is shown two snakes wrapped around the pole. Everything we're a part of in this world, you pretty much can trace it back to a foundation of paganism. We were able to review the historical documentation of the resurrected gods of Osiris, Horus, and his virgin mother, Isis, Dionysus, Samoxis and Zalmoxis, Adonis, Hercules, and Asclepius. There are other resurrected gods before Jesus Christ that you can research. There's Romulus, there's Attis, there's Baal, there's Krishna, there's Mithra, there's Ananda, and many others. This is their history. The creator of heaven and earth is who we serve. And that's it. And until he tells us something different, that's all we're serving.
As we seek truth, please seek truth with us. We don't claim to know everything. We just seek the creator of heaven and earth that does know everything. Let truth roar, let truth reign, let truth speak, and let truth set you and your entire family free.
Truth roars, truth reigns, truth speaks, truth sets me free. Oh, yes, it does. Please see our podcast disclaimer at truthwars.com. And thanks for watching, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel.